Hello and welcome to today's lesson. I'm your hard-working but indefatigable teacher, Mr. Burton. You will need to watch this video and take notes as you go. You may need to watch certain parts of the video a few times to ensure complete understanding. This is your homework and I will check your notes tomorrow before we get started. I hope you learned something.
Okay, hello and welcome to today's lesson. Market equilibrium. Today we put demand and supply together and see what we get. Market equilibrium, we're going to start with a short introductory video.
Supply and demand. If you've only heard of one economics concept, it's probably supply and demand. Eventually we'll want to derive this concept from basic assumptions about utility and cost functions, but for now I'll just go through the 2-minute version. Let's start with supply. A supply curve is a relationship between the price of a certain good and the amount of that good producers make. Let's say they're producing umbrellas. Supply curves typically slope upwards, since a higher price means producers can earn more from each item they sell, so it's worth it for them to produce more of that item. Now, on to demand. A demand curve is a relationship between the price of a certain good and the amount of that good buyers want to buy. Although there are exceptions, most demand curves slope downwards. Intuitively, you'll buy more of something if it's cheaper. If we graph our supply curve and our demand curve together, we get this cool little X. The price at which supply and demand cross is the market clearing price. If the price is at the market clearing level, producers produce exactly as many umbrellas as buyers want to buy. So every umbrella is sold and everyone who wants to buy an umbrella can do so. What if the price of umbrellas is higher than the market clearing price? Then producers make more umbrellas than buyers are willing to buy at that price, and we have a surplus. Similarly, if the price of umbrellas is set below the market clearing price, buyers want to buy lots of umbrellas, but producers aren't so eager to produce that many. So we have a shortage of umbrellas. It's important to realize that the words surplus and shortage always refer to price phenomena. 1,000 umbrellas could constitute a surplus if the price of an umbrella is $100, or it could constitute a shortage if the price of an umbrella is $1. Where would we expect to see prices in our supply and demand model? The answer depends on many things. It depends on whether there is one producer or many, on whether there is one buyer or many, on what the laws are, and on how quickly the market can react to a sudden rainstorm.
Okay, a nice little introductory video there. Short and sweet. Market equilibrium. Our definition: a market state where the supply in the market is equal to the demand in the market. An equilibrium price is the price of a good or service when the supply of it is equal to the demand for it in the market, i.e. where supply meets demand. So here we are on our market supply and demand curves on our right here. Where the two intersect, we have a price of $2, that's the equilibrium price, and we have an equilibrium quantity. Quantity demanded and quantity supplied are the same, 80,000 kilograms a day. Market equilibrium, where supply and demand meet. Equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity, where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied at that particular price of $2. If the price was somehow set higher or somehow set lower, then the quantity demanded would not equal quantity supplied. But we'll take a look at this a little bit later on. Now supply and demand interact to produce the market equilibrium. We've already seen the supply curve and the demand curve meeting to determine the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity demanded and quantity supplied. So if we have our range of prices here, we know from the law of supply that as the price increases, the quantity supplied will also increase, which is the opposite to the law of demand, where as the price increases, the quantity demanded drops. And we can see at this point we've got our supply schedules, we've got our demand schedules. We have got a point where the quantity supplied is equal to the quantity demanded, and that's at $2. Equilibrium price and quantity. And if we took that information and we use that data to plot our supply and demand curves, it would show exactly this. Supply and demand are equal at $2, and that gives us quantity supplied equals quantity demand at 80 million kilograms. Market equilibrium, equilibrium price, and at the equilibrium price, quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. And it is the forces of supply and demand that interact to produce the market price of $2 per kg, and 80,000 kgs of sugar is the equilibrium quantity demanded, which equals the equilibrium quantity supplied. That market price of $2 per kg is important because at other prices other than that $2, quantity demanded cannot equal quantity supplied, and we would say that the market is in a state of disequilibrium. Let's have a look at a situation where we do have a state of disequilibrium. The market is not in equilibrium, and in this case it's going to be excess supply, what we call a market surplus. We know that producers love higher prices. We know that consumers dislike higher prices. If for some reason the market price was set at $3, the quantity supplied is going to be greater than the quantity demanded. And you can see at $3 the quantity supplied there is 120 million kgs, whereas the quantity demanded is only 40 million kgs. There's excess supply. There's a surplus in the market. A surplus is where quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. As the price increases to $3 from the initial equilibrium price of $2, the quantity demanded decreases and the quantity supplied increases. In the end, at that price, quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, and the market has a situation of excess supply. And conversely, if the opposite happens, the price is set too low in the market, we will end up with a market shortage. So if for some reason the equilibrium price was not determined at $2, but the price was set at $1, consumers love low prices, producers hate low prices, laws of supply, laws of demand. At lower prices the quantity supplied is going to drop, at lower prices the quantity demanded is going to increase. So at the ridiculously low price of $1, consumers say, oh yeah, we want some of that, and the quantity demanded increases from 80 to 120 as that price dropped. And the opposite happens for producers. No, we're not going to sell at this ridiculously low price, relatively less profitable, we can do other things. At $1 there'll be some producers in the market that will supply, but the quantity supplied will drop to 40 million kgs. So the shortage where quantity supplied is less than the quantity demanded. So as the price decreases to $1, the quantity demanded increases and the quantity supplied decreases. In the end, at this price, quantity demanded is much greater than quantity supplied, and we can say that the market has a situation of excess demand. Excess demand, market shortages, they can be caused by a decrease in supply, or they can be caused by increases in demand as well. Let's say, for example, if an industry's cost of production increase, we know from our supply topic that the supply curve will shift left. There'll be a decrease in supply if the cost of production increase. Or if consumer incomes rise, then we know from our demand topic that demand for a particular good or service will increase. The demand curve will shift right. Each of these situations will cause a market shortage until the market has time to readjust to a new equilibrium price. So here we are. Initially, supply and demand, they meet. Equilibrium price of $2, equilibrium quantity of 80 million kgs. Cost of production increase, supply decrease, it shifts left, and before the market has a chance to reach that new equilibrium where S1 equals demand, at that $2 price, before the market has a chance to adjust, quantity demanded is still 80, but now the quantity supplied is only 20. So before the market has a chance to adjust, there's a shortage in the market. Quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded. What happens is that the forces of supply and demand, market forces, will cause the price to increase. And we know as the price increases from the law of supply that the quantity supplied will increase as well. And we know from the law of demand as the price increases, the quantity demanded will decrease. So market forces cause the price to increase, and as the price increases, then the quantity supplied will increase and the quantity demanded will decrease. What's happening here is that there's a shortage. There are consumers that want the product, they want the good or the service, and the only way that they can be sure to be able to get hold of this good is to pay a little bit extra for it. So consumers start to bid up the prices to secure a good or service for consumption. What we say is market forces come into play, firms increase their prices to maximize their profits, and consumers bid up the price they are prepared to pay in order to obtain the good. Key point. Now as the price increases, firms increase the quantity supply. We know that from the law of supply, and the quantity demanded by consumers decreases, coming straight from the law of demand, and that's shown as a movement up and along the supply and demand curves. A new equilibrium price is determined. A new equilibrium quantity is determined, where everything is in balance. Quantity demanded once again equals quantity supplied. We can model the same thing with a market shortage. Excess demand is a market shortage. Now market shortages can be caused by a decrease in supply or increases in demand. And it's the opposite of what we just looked at. So an example of an increase in demand would be if consumers' incomes rise, then the market demand for most goods and services will increase and the demand curve would shift right. Let's quickly model that. Supply and demand at the initial equilibrium, $2, equilibrium price, 80 million kgs, equilibrium quantity. Consumer incomes increase the demand for this particular product. Before the price has had a chance to adjust, there is a shortage in this market. Before the price has had a chance to adjust, at the initial price of $2, quantity supplied is 80 million, but the quantity demanded is now 160 million kgs, and that results in a shortage. Quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded. Market forces again come into play. So there's a shortage in the market, and if there's a shortage in the market, then there are consumers who are willing to pay a little bit extra to make sure that they secure the good for their own consumption. And where consumers are prepared to pay a little bit more, you can bet that there are firms willing to adjust their prices upwards to take advantage of this and increase the profitability of the product they're selling. So again, we say market forces come into play. Firms increase their prices to maximize their profits. Consumers bid up the price they're prepared to pay in order to obtain the good. And from the laws of supply and the laws of demand, as price increases, firms increase the quantity supply, and the quantity demanded by consumers decreases. And that's shown by movement up along the supply and demand curves, resulting in the quantity demanded decreasing to 120, quantity supplied increasing to 120, and again we have a situation where the market is once again in equilibrium. This time the equilibrium price is 120 million kgs at the new equilibrium price of $3. Alright, market surplus. Excess supply this time, market surpluses. Market surpluses can be caused by an increase in supply or a decrease in demand. The best example, if an industry's cost of production decrease, then straight away firms will take advantage of this. The good becomes more profitable to produce and the supply curve is going to shift right. Initially, before the cost of production decrease, we have a market equilibrium. The price is set at $2. The quantity supplied and quantity demanded at 80 million kgs. Cost of production decrease. Firms increase their supply to S1. Now we have a situation before the market has a chance to adjust to a new price where there is a surplus of this good in the market. Quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. Quantity supplied there after the increase in supply, 160 million kgs. Quantity demand is still set at the old equilibrium price, resulting in a surplus. Again, the forces of market forces come into play, pushing the price down. Pushing the price down. When firms have a surplus, they've got excess stock, the only way they can shift their inventories, the stock that's building up in their warehouses, is to reduce the price. And as firms start to reduce the price to sell more inventory, to clear their excess stock, then more consumers start to come into the market buying more of the good as the price decreases. So again, we say that market forces come into play. This time firms are decreasing their prices to clear the excess stock and maximize their profits. Excess stock in the warehouse not being sold, there's no profit in unsold stock. As this happens, consumers start to purchase more of the goods as prices start to fall. And this results in the laws of supply and the laws of demand kicking in. So as the price decreases, firms decrease the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded by consumers increases, and this is shown by those arrows along the supply and demand curves there. In the end, a new equilibrium price is reached at $1 and a new equilibrium quantity is attained at that new price, 120 million kgs in this case. A new equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. Again, where the market is in balance, it's an equilibrium, and once again quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. And we're going to model everything for you today. Right? The last situation that causes excess supply, we're going to look at a situation where consumer incomes decrease, the opposite of what we looked at before. When that happens, then the market demand for most goods, if they're a normal good, will decrease and the demand curve shifts left. Quickly modelling that, we've got our initial supply and our initial demand. Market equilibrium price of $2.50, 120 million kgs is the quantity supplied, which equals the quantity demanded at that price. We get a shift of the demand as consumer incomes fall. Perhaps it's a recession. A decrease in demand. Demand shifts to D1. The price in the market at the initial equilibrium has not had a chance to adjust yet. Before it does, again there's a surplus. With that reduced demand for the product due to falling incomes, quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. And we can see that here, that at $2.50, after the decrease in demand, the quantity demanded is only 40. The quantity supplied is still at 120. Market forces come into play for exactly the same reasons. Firms dropping their prices to reduce the amount of stock that's building up in their warehouses, on their shelves, etc. So again, market forces come into play. That's very important. That's very important. That probably will be tested and examined. Firms decrease their prices to clear excess stock and maximize their profits. Consumers start to purchase more of the goods as price starts to fall. And that's straight from the laws of supply and demand, shown by a movement along the supply and demand curves there. The surplus is eliminated because there's a new equilibrium price and a new equilibrium quantity, where quantity demanded once again equals quantity supplied. The market's in balance, supply equals demand. Essential statement here: changes in supply and demand caused by non-price determinant results in the market moving to a temporary state of disequilibrium at that initial market equilibrium price. After that, prices will change and market forces will cause prices to increase or decrease, and that will eliminate excess supply in the case of surpluses, or eliminate excess demand in the case of shortages. The market clears to where the quantity demanded again equals quantity supplied at a new equilibrium. Essential statement. If you can get that through in your assessments, you're looking at top marks.